people with real jobs.
Hello?
Self-employed people. Which do you want to be? This is Certifiably Unemployable. It's time to fire the boss and become self-employed. Maybe you need a push to get that business or side gig going that you've been dreaming about for years. And if you're an entrepreneur, you can listen to stories and get experience from people who've done it. Get ready to change your life. Broadcasting from the compound, this is Certifiably Unemployable, and this is Sean Dean.
Welcome to Certifiably Unemployable. I'm your host, Sean Dean, and thank you once again for being a part of this show. Don't forget to connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Facebook is the main place to communicate with us. If you have any thoughts, any program thoughts, maybe there's a certain topic you want to hear, Facebook is the place to be. Plus, we're going to be adding some VIP content on our Facebook page. You can also find us on many podcast platforms like iTunes, Spotify, Google, as well as Anchor. So if you're ready to fire your boss and you're finally ready to take a step outside and be uncomfortable for a moment and finally become self-employed because you want to be your own boss, well, this is the place to do it. Certifiably Unemployable is not only for the person looking to get a business started, but maybe you're a veteran, maybe you're looking to just kind of take a new inventory of your business, fine-tune your skill set. We're here to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and one of the most important things that you will find in any business, even if it's business or just in life general, is relationships. And our guest this week, we will be talking about relationships. Our guest, Jeff Wells, he's actually out of the Dallas, Texas area. I'll tell you, I've known Jeff for 27 years. We actually first met in high school, and Jeff has been in the restaurant and food business for nearly 30 years. He first had a passion for performing arts. That took him to New York. He followed his dream, and some success. He was able to tour Europe, experience the film and television production process, and create off-Broadway theater from the ground up. While he was in theater and doing this whole theater career, naturally, he was in the restaurant business, right? And that was always his way of supplementing his income. And through that, he realized that he had a passion for food. He had a passion for that. And he was like, well, it's an opportunity. So that made him now a restaurant guy. So Jeff Wells, welcome to Certifiably Unemployable. So we're going to hear a little bit more about your story, but welcome to the show. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sean. Great to be here.
All right. And nice to see you again. So like I said, Jeff and I, we met our sophomore year of high school. Him and I met through the performing arts, through theater. We did theater for a few years. He went to New York. I went to New York. I think we're actually in New York a couple of different times. Then we reconnected over the years, and we've just kind of stayed in touch because of the relationship that we formed years ago. So I want you to kind of bring us to what allowed you. Obviously, you're in theater, right? And you were in the restaurant business. Where you tell us a little bit about how you went from performing, being a performer, to being in the restaurant business. Tell us that story.
Well, we moved to New York with like a cell phone, a Village Voice, and a couple $1,000s in our bank account, right? And so it was just like show up, pray to God, and we got this apartment, and we had moved in, and we instantly realized, holy cow, in 30 days we owe this landlord this money. And so we went in to the city, and we just started looking for places to work. And one of the places that we went to, the place that we got hired, my wife now and my girlfriend at the time, we went in there, and it was a place that we had visited, that we had gone out to eat when we had come to New York as tourists. We walked in, I remember this place. And so we walked in, and we met this absolutely just terrifying woman named Patricia Goldberg, God rest her soul. And she looked us once up and down, right? Gave us applications, and then just said, I want you in tomorrow. Here's what you wear. Don't wear any cologne. I want you to smell like garlic and tomato sauce, right? And so we we came in the next day and we just started working. And I stayed there for 4 years and just went from waiter to bartender to bar manager. And all the while, having the freedom to be able to take time off and go do shows and go do tours and do what I have to do, and also be in Midtown Manhattan, right in the middle of the theater district there, and just like get your butt kicked every night and love it, and see this ragtag bunch of misfit toys kind of pull it together every day, and just see these people who probably didn't have the best home life, or whether it was their fault or someone else's, they would show up to work and make it happen. And there were people that were, just new to this country, that were here as immigrants, that were just, living in an apartment with 14 people, working their butts off, just saving up every dime that they had so they could go and start their own business. I greatly admired those folks, and just their work ethic and how they were able to just, have such a positive attitude while putting in the hours. And and then we that restaurant, it was crazy. It burnt down. It was so weird. It was like it was the day that I signed a contract to go to Europe for like 9 months, right? I was in this restaurant trying to get my ships covered. And all of a sudden, just like the walls started shaking and there was a fire in the walls, and the whole restaurant was destroyed like in minutes.
It's one way to get your shift covered, right? You're like, well,
no, yeah, I know.
I don't have to worry about it anymore.
I couldn't believe, the kismet of that was really, really strange.
Yeah,
and there was no going back.
So how old were you at the time when you moved to New York City and you started working in the restaurant business? How old were you?
New York, that was 99.
99?
So 99. So I was
probably maybe 22, 23 years old, right?
Oh my God. Yeah. Just terrifyingly young, and way too much energy.
So just so everybody knows, we graduated high school in '94, so that's how I did the quick math. I figured, 18 plus 5, so hey, I've got it,
Right. Yeah. The quick math from 94 to 99 is easy, right?
Yeah.
The hard math is 99 to 2020. You're right. That's the hard math for me.
Yeah. You're you're sitting here, you run out of fingers, you have to count your toes. You're like, oh, boy.
Carry a 1. Once you got to carry a 1, it's over.
That's it. So you're in your early 20s, and I have to say, when you're in New York City, not only are you studying theater, but in the restaurant business, one of the things that I think probably had a huge impact on you, and you probably didn't realize it then, was what a way to start creating relationships, because you 100% get an opportunity to really see a different type of person, right? You really see it. I mean, you see all these different people. You get to learn how to read people and everything else. It's just crazy. And because New York City has
everything,
every type of person,
every spectrum,
every
nationality.
All right.
Yeah.
So from there, what happened after New York City, and how did you continue in the restaurant business?
Well, we were gonna we had a baby, right? We had our first daughter, and we had this opportunity to open up this family business, and my brother-in-law went to culinary school, and he and I have always had a passion for food and working together, and so we decided to move back to Texas, and we opened up our first cafe, and that's when I found out that working in a restaurant, managing a restaurant, or just running some bar inventory and hiring some scheduling some bartenders is completely different than setting up a business from the ground up and trying to cultivate customers, employees, etc. And so and that was a 5-year kind of education.
And that was with immediate family, like brothers, sisters, parents.
Yep.
Okay.
It was brother-in-law, mother-in-law.
So how was that as far as the relationship with family, working with the family? How was that? And I want to hear the good, the bad, the indifferent.
Right.
Yeah. So how was that?
There were immensely rewarding moments when people did show up and they were taken care of, and they did realize that they spotted like a gem. Like the second you realize, oh my God, you like me, it's like it's something great, and you have freedom. You can sit there and brainstorm and come up with crazy, weird, funky ideas to kind of stick out. And we would do that. We would go to the farmer's market. We were one of the first like farm to table breakfast kind of cafe joints in Dallas, right? Back when everyone was just like, organic, really? It's not going to catch on, and then we eventually kind of moved into gluten-free, where everyone was, completely scoffed at that, and that took off. And so, yeah, there were immensely rewarding moments and lessons. And there were absolutely just, horrible moments of just realizing that this business is going to destroy these relationships.
Yeah. So how did you deal with that, especially on the personal level? Because not only do you have the business, but especially your wife and you had to go home after you were done at the restaurant, and you had to live with each other. You had to function. I mean, what did you and your wife, or what did you, maybe Jeff, as on a personal level, what did you do to maintain that relationship? And how did you keep it together and keep the family happy? Because obviously your wife and you're still together, and this is not like this. I mean, this was a while back. So
right.
Yeah. So give us some pointers on that. What did you do?
It's I could sit there and I could say that I did a bunch of stuff to try to keep it alive and keep it together, but I'd have to give kudos all to my wife on that, on the fact that she was 100% just the most supportive person, and stood by me through thick and thin, regardless of how kind of wrapped up in the business that I became. I became obsessed. I mean, I really became a true workaholic. It took over my life. It took over our lives. And there was never a day that I didn't work. It was very, very, very rare. But I mean, when your hardest working employee looks at you and says, "When do you take a day off?" and you say, "Never," that's when I kind of realized that this is not a sustainable life. And by just sheer God's grace, it kind of all came to a head, and we had to make a decision on whether or not we were going to go out on our own, or we were going to kind of stick it out.
Yeah.
And so
at what point, so before I go into that one thing, I just had a thought, but I'm going to kind of back it up a little bit. So with that being said, with the relationship, I agree with you, because I've worked with family over the years. I've worked with my dad for many years. I've also worked side by side with my wife. I've worked, side by side with family over the years, and it's not easy. And one of the things that you have to learn how to do is you have to be able to separate church from state.
Yep.
You've got to be able to say, we're at work. And it was one of those things when I met my wife, I had been self-employed for so many years. I asked her what she wanted to do, and she said, "Well, I would love to be able to work side by side with you." And I said, "Listen, before we started working together, I just kind of had to say, I was like, I am not the easiest person to work with, because I'm Sean here, but I'm a different person when I'm there." And we did well together. I mean, there was some very tense moments. And there was times where she had to be like, you're being a jerk. Well, that's the way it is. I mean, but because I think a lot of times passion overwhelms what you're doing, and you forget as a human being that I've got this relationship here on the business side, and I've got the relationship at home. So you got to learn how to manage that. And that's going to be another topic that we'll talk about another day, is how to balance that out and everything else. But so what did you and your wife, how did you finally decide that you were going to step out on your own? And when you did that, how did it affect your relationship with your other family?
It severed it. I mean, it really, there has not, there has been animosity, ever since. Some relationships, have been rekindled and healed, and others have not.
Yeah.
So, but I believe that we've all moved forward. Now,
if you wouldn't have separated from your family and did your own thing, do you think you'd still be in the restaurant business? Do you think you would have any level of success right now? I mean, what do you think would have happened from that? I mean, was that a necessary evil? Was that something you had to do?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it was something that had to happen.
Yeah.
It was definitely that way, and I don't regret it at all.
They say you have to be uncomfortable to get comfortable. And when you're an entrepreneur, we go through that a lot. And the relationship part, that is very, very kind common. You know, that's
Yeah.
something that happens all the time. So you moved out on your own. You started your own business. It was in the same area as to where you were before, right?
Sure.
Okay. So tell us about that. I mean, when you went to start your own business, I mean, you know, did you just say, did you just save up cash, or did you walk into?
We got real lucky. Real lucky, and we were able to basically, find an investor very quickly right off the bat and get private money.
Okay.
To just kind of make that happen.
So that investor, was that somebody that you already knew, or was that a total stranger?
No, that was a relationship that was a regular of the restaurant, right? And so we were able to kind of show how this business could benefit him as well as his other business, right? That was filled with clients that also came to our thing. And so, and again, I mean, when we branched out immediately, we were like, okay, we're doing it all over again. We're going to do it all over again, and we're going to learn from our mistakes, and we're going to, not do the same thing over and over again. And some things you just do over and over again, right? And then you just realize, why did I do that?
Yeah. Why do I keep doing the same stupid thing over and over again?
I know. Why do I keep staring at the same small kitchen saying we can make it work? Yeah. And so we took this little spot and we made it perfect. I mean, we made it just beautiful, and had great help, and opened up and top 10 best breakfast in Dallas right off the bat, first year. I mean,
that's awesome.
And so,
because that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. And, the restaurant business is probably the toughest industry you can get into. Number one. Number two, surviving beyond the first year, really the first 5 years is always a challenge. When you hit that 5-year mark, you're like, all right, now we have something. So, So let's talk about that relationship. Obviously you were building a relationship with your customers. If you had a customer who loved what you were doing so much, was willing to invest in a new venture, how do you think that happened? I mean, what kind of things did you do to build those relationships, especially a unique relationship like that with your customers?
Well, we just cultivated this, we created this culture of people, and so this our original little spot was just, kind of the who's who of what was going on, in Dallas at the time. And it was just bustling kind of lunch place that, and then it became brunch. I mean, that's right when Dallas kind of, took on the idea that brunch is the greatest meal that ever existed, that it's just lunch with eggs and booze. And so so we just kind of went on that model. And so with this, we had the new place, we had a bar, we could serve beer and wine, right? That was a whole different kind of element there. We were able to, have this chef inspired menu, but have it be a little bit more static instead of a little, fluid, the way we were kind of fly by the seat of our pants at the previous place. And so, and also we were in a different kind of area, it's, it's another crazy thing about the restaurant business is that you've got this, maybe like, if you're lucky, maybe 3 to 5 mile circumference of people that are willing to stay in your loop, that are just kind of be there. Right. And so that's called the economics of just geography. And so we were able to kind of attract a new base as well.
Wow. So it sounds to me like you were able to take this initial concept, and like you said, you were kind of doing things off the seat of your pants, and then you're able to formulate a game plan, something that you knew, I don't want a tiny kitchen. I need something that's better. I need this. I need that. We're going to take things that didn't work. And so obviously you're able to lay this attractive platform in front of an investor, and because you already had a good relationship with them. So that's awesome, because that's a huge learning lesson. Now, let's talk about when you actually went to open up that new venture, you and your wife. Was it just the two of you, or did you bring employees that you had worked with in the past to the new venture, or did you seek new people?
No, it was me and a team of people that we've been working together for a while. And so it was those relationships that created, kind of the whole foundation.
Were they employees of yours, or were they relationships that you had created just through being in the business, and you had met them through other venues, or what were those relationships? How were they created?
They were employees first. Right. And then as those employees kind of got more responsibility, they gained more trust. And we ended up just having this great working relationship to where we could work a room really, really well. We could kind of put things together really quickly,
Good.
come up with ideas and execute. And so it's called knowing how to dance. That's just what it is. We each were
Yep.
able to balance each other out.
That's it. That's it.
So,
You gotta know what your partner is able to do, and you have to know your strengths and you have to know your weaknesses.
sure.
Because I know that with that being said, with relationships with business partners, I have had business partners in the past where you would think that you're on the same page, then it's like you turn your head and they're going in a totally different direction, or they're doing stuff and you're like, what are they doing? And then you come to find out you can't really trust that person, or you feel a certain way because you're the one working the hardest and they're not holding up their own. So I'm bringing that up because you got to understand what your partner's doing. And it's a lot like a marriage.
Yeah.
If you don't understand your strength as opposed to your partner's strength, then how are you going to balance it out? Right.
Right.
So
and communication is the key to that.
Yeah. 100%. So let's talk about your, let's talk about your employees and how has that always been for Jeff as a business owner?
Right.
Have you always been able to communicate easily with your employees? Has that ever been a struggle for you? And if it was a struggle, okay, it's always been a struggle. So what?
It's not
what has
always
been the
been a
hardest
struggle,
part
but
for
there
you?
are, the hardest part for me is to have real, sincere, hard conversations, that are critical of somebody, that bring up someone's faults, but at the same time try to turn it into a coaching moment, and make them understand that if they can, that these are defects of character that really do need to be kind of like extracted from your life. You need to be able to recognize these patterns in yourself, or you're going to have some problems later on.
Yeah.
Those are hard conversations. You try, and I don't, I've been really lucky to see people coming in and out of our doors, that just show up and have a passion for food and work their butts off, and they go off and manage a hotel or move on to bigger and better things and open up fancy places in Austin and whatnot. And,
that's awesome.
And those relationships are great. I love seeing people succeed, that used to be, I remember when you were, this line cook, on my Sunday morning guy, my egg guy for 3 years, but now look at you, you're
now
amazing.
You got your own spot. Yeah.
That's right.
One of the things that I have found as a business owner, Jeff, that's been always hard for me as a boss, a couple of things. You try to remain the boss, and you don't want to become their friend because you don't want to get too close, because when things, if they run in late or they do certain things, you don't want to be like, well, but he didn't mean to do it, because now you're almost treating that person different than everybody else. So I feel that's one of the hardest parts about being a business owner with employees, for me personally. And this is one of those things, if you're listening to this right now and this topic on relationships, this is something that I would love to hear what people's comments are, is that how do you deal with employees, and how do you separate the friendship from the business aspect, and knowing that, yeah, I could be your friend, but I'm also your boss. Because the other side of that is that I've always had a challenge with firing people. I've always found it easier to hire a general manager that can fire people, because I feel bad when I do that, as aggressive as I may sound as far as personality and everything else, when it comes to getting rid of somebody, even if they deserve to be fired. I think there's been one time where I didn't think twice about it, because she stole, she lied, and I was like, I don't care, you're out of here. But for the most part, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
How have you dealt with stuff like that?
That's a last resort. And yes, there are, because really, these people, you kind of rely on them, and you're like, if these people go, especially in a small business, you sit there and you immediately start analyzing how your workload is going to change, because this person's not going to be there, or managing finances in your mind, going, okay, well, we got to give this guy a raise now because he's going to pick up the slack for this dude that's not going to be there anymore, And so, firing people, has never, that's one thing that for some reason I'm okay with. Like, I'm okay with realizing, okay, it's hard. It sucks, right? Having a hard conversation and hoping to change somebody is the hard part. And like having a coaching moment with them, and what I like encouragement. I feel like encouragement is the key. Encouragement is the key to where hopefully you can get to a point where you can build this foundation to where they do actually want to kind of listen to you and just kind of understand. And it helps to have systems and so forth. And I'm very, very lucky right now because we do have a very solid crew, and it is taking years to get there. It's taking years, and it's taken several conversations where we sit down and not criticize or we just go through point by point on these are the things that need to change, and this is how it's going to benefit you. Not just, and you understand, like, I think we talked about before, that people resonate to different things. Some people resonate to money. Some people resonate to verbal praise. Everyone's got their love language, right? And so, it's really, it's finding out what those pressure points are, so that way you can kind of move a business forward. And so again, it's we've had those people, those success stories that have just kind of like retooled their whole lives in and amongst, with us working for them, and they're just 100% just the most fantastic people, and we couldn't be more proud to be working side by side with them and support them in everything we can. And then there are other people that that need to seek up other opportunity elsewhere. But right now we're very lucky and very blessed to have a solid crew of people, and it's not just us. It's hiring managers that are equally as magnetic, of personalities, and responsible.
Right. And well, obviously when you start a business, there's a couple of things that you had said when you have a small business, especially when you go and you have an issue with somebody right away, you're like, if I get rid of this person, how is it going to affect my workload, and how is it going to affect our growth moving forward? But at the end of the day, that's where you as a business owner need to understand how severe is the situation, because if you don't fix the problem, it's only going to get worse. It's like when you're married and you've got an issue with your spouse and you don't communicate that issue, it's not just going to go away. Oh, well, I'm going to let it go and everything's going to be fine. No, it's 9 times out of 10, that's not the case. And so it's the same thing with an employee, especially if there's an issue. So one of the things that if you're looking to start a business and you're looking to do something specifically, where you're going to need employees, you have to think that through, and you have to understand, I might have a good crew, but something could change. Somebody can have an opportunity. It might not even be a matter of you firing them. They may have an opportunity and they're like, you know what? Hey, Jeff, I love you. I love the business. This is great, but I've got an opportunity that's better. And, now you're having to be like, well, do I offer them more money? I mean, what do I do? So you always have to think about that as a business owner. So with that being said, obviously you've been able to manage that well. You've been able to do well with that. And I'll be honest with you, that's always been a challenge with me is knowing when to get rid of somebody, because I'm like, oh, well, they'll be better. They'll fix it themselves. Well, no, they normally don't. So that's always been a challenge. So let's talk now about relationships. I know specifically in the restaurant business that you have a lot of experience in. Obviously, you have to deal a lot with vendors, with suppliers. And I would imagine having a positive relationship with vendors is very important. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think that, okay, if there was any kind of, because I've definitely been that guy that's been on the phone going, where the hell is my stuff? Right? It better be here right now, right. But in a much louder tone with a lot more curse words. Okay. And, right. So my mantra now that has to happen is everything's going to be okay. It's just what you have to kind of be with, these people these vendors are, especially your reps, right? These people are not just taking care of clients, but they're out hustling the street, trying to get more clients at the same time,
right.
To kind of get their numbers up and everything. And and I didn't really understand, the kind of depth of that until we created another entity to our company that required me to go out into the street and be kind of this kind of tip of the spear kind of sales force kind of thing. And that was a whole nother kind of layer of understanding, of respect, and how hard these vendors work for us, and how I'm able to use that understanding to inspire them to work harder for me.
Right. But obviously knowledge like that takes time. That's not something that you find out right away. I mean, so if you don't understand that, what do you do to get a positive relationship with a vendor outside of just paying your invoice and saying everything's good? How do you maintain a positive relationship? What do you do with that person?
Well, you make them feel like they're a part of the development or the continued development of your business, and so you constantly set up meetings with them. Well, not constantly, like maybe once every 3 months, you change, something like that. You call up and you say, hey, here's what we want to do. Here's the menu options that we want to have. Right. And that's when they love their job. That's when they're able to look at this vast inventory of products that they have.
Yeah, maybe
right?
ask them for their suggestions and stuff like that. Right?
Yeah, they love that, especially when you sit down with a meat vendor, those are fun days. Those are really fun days where it's just like, okay, let's take a look at this. So like when COVID happened, we immediately shifted over and we were like, okay, we need to be a takeout monster now. All right. We need to be able to our presence has to do with our decor, our kitschy music, our tatted out wait staff. It has nothing to do with that now. It's all about what it looks like when it comes dropped off to them from Uber Eats, in whatever state that is. And so what does your packaging look like? What is it? Is it going to look like everybody else's? Is it going to be wrapped in tinfoil? No. And so we sat down with our vendors who were just more than ecstatic because they were going through a really hard time. And so we pulled together all these resources from all of our vendors to sit there and say, okay, these fries stay crispy longer. Okay, so we're going to switch to these fries. Okay, so we're going to switch to this, and then we're going to put all these different little packaging pieces together to kind of, be right on top of this thing.
Yeah, so now they're not just sitting there with their clipboard taking an order or their laptop taking an order. They're like, you know what?
Right.
I'm actually involved in this process. And when they go to your restaurant and they see the packaging, they're like, hey, babe, I helped them pick this out. So now it brings a whole new life form into that. And of course, they're going to naturally be better connected with you as a client.
It's crazy, the detail that's required, right? And so we found these pickles from Brooklyn that are like these sweet horseradish pickles.
Right.
They're delicious. They're amazing. And and I can't even tell you, they're called Schwartz's pickles, right?
Okay.
And so and we went through, when you sit down and you eat, 15 different kinds of pickles until you come upon that right one, that's the level of detail that goes into it. And that's where a good vendor comes into play, on these tiny little things that nobody else has that this vendor found for us. Right. So that way they can come in, sit down, and it's just 2 little pickles. It's only on the side of the cheeseburger at our restaurant. And so a vendor can pick it up and be like, that's it. That's the Schwartz horseradish pickle right there. You know what I'm saying? And so it's
and
fun.
how many companies could you get those pickles from? Is it one of those things where like only one company actually carries those? So you have to be very picky with who you choose?
Right. Well, it's even great because, okay, so you've got a vendor, right? And then those vendors are connected to brokers that are connected to hundreds of different food companies.
Right.
Right. And so they're able to get all these different brokers to come in and they sit down and they just throw all their toys at us, And so next thing you know, we're like, okay, well, are you able to bring this in for us? And they're like, absolutely, we'll bring it in for you.
So that's specific. So the Schwartz pickle you're talking about, the one that just sounds super, super delicious.
Yeah. That's a mild example.
If I were to have Jeff give me one example of a food product that he loves, he chooses pickles. I love it. But at any rate, the horseradish pickle from Brooklyn, right? Mm-hmm. So with that being said, the reason I'm asking that is that how many places could you get that pickle from, you think?
Nobody.
Right. So you have one vendor that you can get the pickle from, right?
One. Yeah.
So how crucial is maintaining that relationship?
Oh,
because now if you mess up the relationship with that person, now your pickle guy is gone.
Oh, well, we almost had a catastrophe because the pickle apparently got changed into a different thickness. And I've never had a heart attack in my life over a pickle before until I saw it being a little thinner, but everything is fine now. It's weird.
It was thick and then it was thinner, and that was, that's a whole different conversation, right?
Do I like being this neurotic? No, I don't like being this neurotic. I don't. Right. And so, but I have people that work with me that are also equally as neurotic. And
right, but I think that's a good example. As funny as the whole pickle thing is, it's a great example because hypothetically, if you messed up the relationship with that pickle guy and your customers look forward to those pickles on the burger, now you can't get them. Now you're going to possibly ruin relationships with the customers because they're the pickles changed.
What happened?
Because I know that I've been to places before where maybe they change, like my wife, she loves ranch. She puts ranch on everything. And we were at this restaurant one time where she's like, their ranch is just not the same. I mean, and you would have thought her meal came out uncooked. I mean, it ruined her whole dinner. You know what I'm saying? And that's the reason why little things like that make a big difference.
Right.
So with that being said, have you ever screwed up your relationship with a vendor before?
Oh yeah, totally.
What did you do?
Oh, I thought I was Gordon Ramsay for a couple of minutes on the phone, and I yelled and screamed and cursed and
man,
okay. I said horrible things. This is a long time ago.
What was the reason for that?
They made a small mistake, and instead of like 9 cases of mixed greens, I got 90. Right. And so, but I'm in the middle of the lunch and I got 90 cases of mixed greens like stacked up or whatever. And I got I got upset and I lost my temper, which I shouldn't have done.
So so on the other side of you losing your temper, the other side of that phone call, what happened?
Oh, they dropped me. They totally were like, we don't want to ever hear from you ever again. We're done.
So were you able to find those products from other vendors?
Not all together. Like I would have to get other, like at least 2 other accounts to match what they were able to produce for me, because it was kind of a one phone call kind of deal. They were able to take care of so much at one time. So
because you were a stupid donkey, and I'm using that term because I've heard Gordon Ramsay say that, you now made your job more difficult because you had to then find these products, all different vendors where you could have bought them from one place.
Well, actually, when I realized that, I immediately tried to repair the relationship, and I called the supervisor. I apologized to the person I yelled at. I believe I brought in like coffee cake. I groveled and I begged for amends. I really did. Yeah. And gratefully they took me back.
Did you know about those good pickles at the time? Could you maybe just brought them a jar of those pickles and they would have been very happy maybe?
No, that was pickles further down the road.
That was pre-pickle. Okay. So we've talked about vendors, we've talked about employees. Now what about the relationship with yourself? Any advice on that? How has it seems good now? I mean, from what I gather, it seems good now. Has it always been like that?
No. It's I think when you're a creative person, it's so easy to just I would only get confidence as a creative person when I was like doing a show or being creative or whatever. Right. Yeah, totally. And then I
understand that.
Yeah. And when you don't have that kind of instant gratification, it's you constantly question your value and your ability to kind of create, at least for my experience, that is. So I was very hard on myself. I've always been kind of very hard on myself to kind of push myself to keep going, to drive, to move forward. And if I never hit that mark, I was unkind to myself in my thoughts and my mind.
So how did you deal with that? Like, I mean, in times when you were like, I'm not performing anymore. I'm full-time in the restaurant. I don't have an outlet, outside of doing community theater and things like that. I mean, but how did you deal with the relationship with yourself through the whole restaurant business and everything?
I think eventually, I have to say, in all honesty, I found faith, and I found faith in God. And I've got to be completely real about this, that I never ever thought that I would be
nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong.
One of those people, and it came out of nowhere, and I was able to find good. I sought counseling. I saw, there's nothing wrong with kind of just, being able to stare at yourself and be 100% honest. It's one of the greatest gifts that was ever given to me, is the ability to look at myself and be 100% completely honest with what's right, what's wrong, and what needs to change. And so I sought therapy. I sought to kind of like, get, bad habits, recognized, and be able to, develop programs to kind of move past those and find a better path and a better way to deal with life in general. And faith seems to be that cornerstone, that bridge, that thing that regardless of what I do and how I fail, and if I fail, and when I fail, because I will again, that I will always have that to kind of hold on to. And so that really, in my opinion, is it's been a pretty recent thing, and it's changed my whole perspective on the kind of person I want to be, and the kind of and how I treat myself, which is very important. Yeah, totally. I mean, if you can't treat yourself well, then you can't treat others well. Truly.
No. You have to take care of yourself first, because if you don't feel happiness, or if you don't feel complete, if you don't believe in yourself, number one, if you don't believe in yourself, you're not going to have a successful business. You're not going to have a successful relationship. I mean, everything is just going to fall on its face. So, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because a lot of people, I think one of the one of the common denominators in us being human beings and us being entrepreneurs is you have to have belief in yourself. And because it's not always going to be easy, it's going to be hard. You're going to get kicked. You're going to get hurt. You're going to fall. You're going to bruise. You're going to get insulted. You're going to get in fights. But you have to know that the other side of it is going to be okay, because you believe in yourself. So no, I think that's huge. So I appreciate you sharing that, because I think that's very important. So you've been in the restaurant business, and I understand now that you've got another company. So through your restaurant endeavors, everything, you've kind of evolved into a company called Century Oak Foods, which is a portfolio of businesses, from your restaurants to your gluten-free baked goods. And before we wrap it up for this week's episode, I want to talk more about that, because just from the brief conversation we've had about that, I know that has evolved into a whole new business, which complements what you're doing, but it's because of relationships. So how did you go from owning a restaurant into having a complete line of gluten-free baked goods? I want to hear about that.
Well, I mean, our restaurant is, one of the few, if not the first, gluten-free restaurants in Dallas. And so, and we've been making our own gluten-free baked goods, just because, all the other gluten-free stuff we were able to get, just didn't hit the mark for, what we were looking for, And so gluten-free food has got a really bad rep, as far as flavor profile is concerned, and being satisfying in that capacity. Right. That's the nicest way I can put that. And so we just kind of came up with this idea of, like, if Julia Childs had celiac disease, right, what would it taste like if a French grandma made this stuff? And so,
that's an interesting analogy.
Right. Oh, I got a ton of those, buddy. And so we kind of just started this journey, and so we started baking gluten-free baked goods in our restaurant, serving our own gluten-free bread, coffee cake, cakes, that kind of stuff, and biscuits in our restaurant. And eventually people just started coming in that weren't even gluten-free, and they just didn't care. They loved it. They thought it was great, and so that was kind of like the brass ring to us. It's like, if it's so good that someone that doesn't even care about gluten-free will still eat it and be totally completely satisfied with it, that's the kind of flavor profile we're looking for. And so that's what we kind of developed. And then we started selling on our own to other restaurants, helping them with their gluten-free solutions, developing things specifically for certain businesses and so forth. And then we just kind of started scaling up with an industrial, kind of a small scale industrial bakery, to kind of move forward with that. And then eventually we'll start selling into stores. And
so that's where Lightful Foods was born, right?
That's correct. That's Lightful Foods. Yep.
All right. So of course we will be able to put information up on certifiablyunemployable.com, and of course some of our other resources to share that product so that way you can share the gluten-free goods with everybody. So it was getting to the point with the gluten-free products to where people were eating your baked goods and they didn't realize they were gluten-free, and they loved it, right? That's
yes.
good. That's good.
Yeah.
Because I know that that's not common in that industry.
We call it grandma good. If something is grandma good, right, then it's good.
I like that analogy. I like that. Yeah, that one hits home more to me than the whole Julia Child with celiac disease one. So, but
okay, fine. You know what? That's my process. I always overshoot it, and then we come back and we find that little.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
I'm glad you witnessed that.
Yeah. So Jeff, I really appreciate you being a part of Certifiably Unemployable. So, at what point in your life do you think you finally said to yourself, you know what, I can never work for anybody. I am 100% certifiably unemployable.
Oh,
when was that?
That was April of 2009 when Company Cafe opened in Dallas, Texas, baby.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Relationships is huge, and you know, taking that leap of faith. Is there any last minute or last thoughts that you had before we wrap it up today?
Absolutely. You got to take care of people that take care of you, because eventually you'll end up on their awesome podcast called Certifiably Unemployable.
I appreciate that, buddy, very much. So remember, relationships is huge in business. And if listen, you have to have the relationship with yourself. That was probably the most pivotal moment for me in this show is people need to understand who they are personally, have a relationship with yourself first. We will have more about this topic coming up in future episodes. So don't forget, if you're looking to fire your boss, you're looking to become self-employed, this is where it's all at. It's Certifiably Unemployable. Until next time.
You've been listening to Certifiably Unemployable. Ready to fire the boss yet? You're on your way. Sean has been self-employed for over 20 years. So if that's something that you want to do, something you've been dreaming about for years, Sean has all the knowledge, good, bad, and indifferent. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on Facebook and Instagram at Certifiably Unemployable. Find us on YouTube and at www.certifiablyunemployable.com. Till next time, this is Certifiably Unemployable, signing off.